Now is New York Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, a member of that Congressional Black Caucus, who spoke at today's press conference. Thank you so much, Congressman, for joining. Some powerful data from this study. The average African-American and Latino household, listen to this, it has only 6 and 7 cents, respectively, for African-Americans and Latinos for every dollar of wealth held by the typical white family. Again, that is 6 and 7 cents, respectively, on every dollar of white wealth. Why do you think that is?
Well, you know, it's very important for us to have an evidence-based conversation about race and disparities as they exist in America, as opposed to one anchored in the ignorance of others like Donald Sterling. And so this report is very timely in exposing the great wealth disparity that exists. Part of the reason is that African-American communities were hit hardest by the Great Recession, and we have recovered the least in terms of benefiting from the things that have taken place over the last several years. One of the reasons why the wealth disparity in the African-American community is so great is because a lot of our wealth, to the extent that it exists, is wrapped up in home ownership. And of course, when the recession hit and the housing bubble burst, there were a lot of foreclosures. I represent neighborhoods in Brooklyn that are amongst the most foreclosed upon in the state and, in fact, the country. That is disproportionately a problem that has impacted the African-American community, and it's one of the reasons that explains the tremendous wealth disparity, but there are, of course, many others that were documented by this report.
So you guys are unveiling this report, you're calling attention to this issue. What do you hope will come of today's event?
Well, it's important that we focus on responsible policies in the Congress, unlike what has been put forth by Paul Ryan and his Republican colleagues that would cut the top tax rate for wealthy and high-income earners in America, while at the same time devastating the social safety net and programs like higher education spending, which will be cut by $260 billion by the Paul Ryan budget, when at the same time we've got issues like African Americans and Latinos in America not being able to achieve higher education completion at the same rates, and we know that that, of course, is a pathway toward the middle class. Now, this is an American problem in terms of the declining middle class, as has been recently documented, and as you referenced earlier, Ronan, but it's disproportionately impacting communities of color, and in particular, African Americans. That's a bad thing for our economy. As we become a more diverse country, we should be lifting everyone up, and we can't leave certain communities behind.
And Congressman, you fault proposals like the Paul Ryan budget. I understand actually that your caucus is meeting with Paul Ryan tomorrow. I want to ask you about that, but first, let's have a reminder of his comments that got him into a lot of trouble with people who critiqued them as being potentially racist. Take a look.
We have got this tailspin of culture in our inner cities in particular, of men not working, and just generations of men not even thinking about working or learning the value and the culture of work. And so there's a real culture problem here that has to be dealt with.
Now, it's important to note that Paul Ryan did say, it is clear that I was inarticulate about the point I was trying to make. I was not implicating the culture of one community, but of society as a whole. But clearly there's this meeting happening, which is viewed as partly a response to that. First of all, what do you think of those comments? And second of all, what do you hope will come of your conversations with Congressman Ryan?
Well, those definitely were comments that weren't based on facts or evidence, and were really rooted in this narrative that has been designed to explain away differences that have existed in terms of the ability of African Americans and Latinos and people in the inner city to achieve similar levels of educational and economic achievement as others in America. I expect that it's going to be a respectful conversation tomorrow, but we have sharp differences. I sit on the Budget Committee with Paul Ryan, voted against it, both in the committee and on the floor of the House of Representatives, and will continue to denounce it as an extreme budget. But I think it's positive that we're willing to come together and have a conversation about our differences, and hopefully be able to find common ground in terms of dealing with the problem of wealth inequality and poverty in America.
And it must be said that Congressman Ryan, I think, has responded in quite a fulsome manner to those critiques, and it's a good thing that he's having the conversation with you. Thank you so much for that update. You're Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. Appreciate it.
Thank you.